Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool and Ethereum ecosystems. My name is Wack. It is April 30th, and I am going to cover the news of EigenLayer's airdrop and reworking their protocol. I'm also going to be talking about the Smart Node Stack version 2 that is released as a beta version 1. And also we're going to be talking about some congressional and SEC drama. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so the big news is EigenLayer released information about their reworking of their token and their white paper, and it's basically led to a whole lot of things changing for EigenLayer. This news came in yesterday. They said Eigen Universal Intersubjective Work Token towards open verifiable digital commons, and this is by the Eigen Labs team. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole paper because I'm going to actually talk about that in a few minutes, but this is there's a whole lot of jargon and marketing talking here, and it's like 40 plus pages long, and there's a whole lot of content, and I'll admit I haven't read all of it. I've just read a whole lot of people talking about it, but let's go here to the Rocket Pool Discord where people were discussing it. And what happened is, with the paper release, we got this article here saying that there's also a token that's coming with it. So this was launched on Monday afternoon, and there's an article here from the block where they were talking about how 15% of the airdrop will be going to ecosystem participants. By that I mean airdrop farmers, pretty much. The quick takers EigenLayer unveiled its native token, which will be distributed by the Eigen Foundation. The project will allocate 15% of its Eigen tokens over multiple seasons to ecosystem participants. So they're calling it a stake drop, and the first version of that is coming out soon. And then they're going to have the token will be locked upon availability. And it won't be transferable, so it won't be sellable, but it's going to come in phases. So the first phase is the one that's been announced now, and that is the one that's going to people who are restaking with EigenLayer using LSTs. The second phase, which will be coming I think in a month, will be going to people who were using LRTs, but I'm going to be talking about that a little bit later as well. So to build the hype, with the new white paper, new token announcement, the EigenLayer guys, Sriram and Robert Drost, both went on Bankless. As you can see over here, this was during yesterday afternoon. They went on like a live stream, and one thing that was really interesting was people were actually quite vocally upset during the the chat live stream, so much so that the chat was actually turned off during the live stream. So there was a little bit of drama. People were really upset about a few things. The things they were upset about was thinking that they didn't get tokens for staking LRTs because their allocation came through as 0. Also, people were upset about the token being locked upon airdrop and being non-transferable. And there were a whole bunch of other things as well that people were kind of upset about. But most people's responses focused on the token. Not as many people were talking about the contents of the new white paper. However, there were some rumblings going around that the new tokenomics and the new system that they were trying to put together was actually not very good. So this morning in Discord, in the Rocket Pool Discord, I asked, are there any Twitter threads or thoughts on how shitty the new EigenLayer tokenomics are? Not sure. Who's one of the giga brains in our community. He said, "What do you mean with tokenomics?" I said, "They removed the necessity for ETH, right?" And then Halulu said, "I hear they require the EVS to have 10% of their TVL in Eigen tokens." So that's quite interesting to me. I said, "I just saw bits and pieces of people criticizing the changes, but I didn't delve into the ideas as much as I should have at the time." So he and Noshua then kind of started explaining things to me. He said, "It doesn't just work with ETH." So I said, "How does it work?" And then Val says, "If by removed you mean admitted that it was useless all along." So the idea was that you would be staking ETH that was already staked, so you'd be restaking ETH into EigenLayer. Well, it turns out that that was, like Val says here, useless all along. like a lot of people in the Rocket Pool community like kind of suspected. And EigenLayer basically changed their thing, so you will be staking the Eigen token instead of restaking ETH. So Noshua says here, unclear if it works. They'll try to make it work with Eigen staking instead of ETH restaking. And I said, ooh, I see. And then Val says, so I said, how does it work? And Val says, weird assumption given they just said their previous big innovation was garbage. So this was their, their ETH restaking innovation that they were making. And then I said, so all the influencers are falling over themselves saying how amazing it is. But what happened was, I'm not sure kind of explained what happened. He says, basically what happened was, EigenLayer thought they could do restaking using staked ETH to secure something else. They realized it doesn't work and they're pivoting to something else, staking of Eigen to secure something, and saying it's bad tokenomics, it's kind of missing the mark. It's not like anyone can offer an alternative that actually makes the original restaking idea work. If your point is that Eigen doesn't seem very appealing now, sure, that's true. So there were a whole lot of people that were saying that EigenLayer isn't Ethereum aligned anymore, and it was just kind of like a swindle, basically, and it makes it no different from any other protocols kind of out there. Well, that was another area of discussion that came up here as well. So Jasper says that not many people really understand the changes at this moment in time from what he's seen, and people haven't actually read the white paper. Stilly says it's time for a Jasper thread on the topic. But anyway, Val says anyone focusing on the airdrop rather than the fact that the product entirely changed missed the purposely buried lead. So what Mike says is like, so basically what someone has been saying here for a long time, there is barely a market for the actual product. So this is the information here now is like that what will truly set EigenLayer apart, and does it justify its $15 to $20 billion estimate market cap that people think that it might have on the it being a generational wealth creation airdrop and all this kind of stuff. There were some questions about how the forking will work within it and how the actual mechanics of the protocol will work. Jasper says, to be honest, I don't understand the new system well enough. Noshua said, I don't care to understand the new approach. Staking their native token instead of restaking changes their value proposition so massively. Now have to compute with staking yield instead of adding something on top. So the idea was, you get 3% staking yield, you get 1% on top of MEV, and then you might get 1 or 2% on top of that for EigenLayer. That would double basically, well, not double, but like add 50% to your staking rewards, which is really cool. Now, however, you have this Eigen token and then you stake that and you get some rewards. So that is actually competing then with staking Ethereum rather than being an additive to staking Ethereum or restaking Ethereum. So there's really some really interesting ideas that were kind of talking about this. Like says, I need a well-written article explaining this new pivot. And yeah, people were quite upset. Like here, Ishka said, at some point the reasonable take has to be these words simply don't mean anything. So yeah, there was a lot of negativity about EigenLayer and how it's all going to work. But here we had Austin basically on ETH Finance talking about EigenLayer and breaking down the white paper. He said, I never actually put any funds into EigenLayer restaking, while I was always interested in the concept of the point system and insane levels of hype. An unreleased protocol triggered some circuit breakers in my head, and I just couldn't let myself participate materially. So congrats to those with access to a good amount of Eigen, and my condolences to those who feel rugged by the distribution parameters and or geographical IP blocking. This is another thing that they were being quite strict about, is that using a VPN to claim your tokens was not working, or not even to see your tokens basically. So there's this idea that they're going to try to really restrict how VPNs work in claiming the tokens. Of course, people will always find ways around it. It seems like the people who are managing the token distribution is a company called Clique, and Clique were the ones who did the Omni airdrop of a couple of weeks ago. And the great thing about that was it was quite a relatively straightforward interaction on their Etherscan contract directly to be able to claim the tokens. So it looks like the same kind of situation would happen with Eigen, potentially, as a way of getting around any kind of firewall, VPN or geo blocking, the VPN blocking or geo blocking. So yeah, so here, he says the more interesting topic for me is the release of the Eigen token white paper. The authors present Eigen as having a critical role in restaking, and like to try to break it down a little. So this then write-up goes does a really good job of breaking down the whole way that EigenLayer will work, basically, and how the Eigen token fits into it. So this has topics here of like staking faults, with objective faults, intersubjective faults, how these work. Basically, objective faults are things that would trigger a slashing. So these are objectively like problematic things, but intersubjective things are when there's generally agreed upon truth, but it's not mathematically provable on chain. So it depends on whether something is on chain or not, and this will then help with that on chain aspect of it. So there'll be tyranny. There's information about tyranny of the majority, overloading Ethereum consensus. So what EigenLayer is arguing that by putting the Eigen token into it instead, they're actually taking pressure away from any Ethereum consensus issues. But at the same time, then the Eigen protocol, people feel rugged by that in a sense. And then there's information here about the Eigen token and how it's all going to work with the two token model with Eigen and B Eigen, and how this is going to actually be like, there's going to be challenges and forks and how it's all going to work. And then other versions of the tokens, and then conclusions and thoughts. So here he says the big thing here is that E3 staking will only be used as economic security for objective faults, while B Eigen provides economic security for intersubjective faults. Intersubjective faults often require social consensus to resolve through a fork, e.g. the DAO, and can sometimes be contentious. The biggest benefit of the system is that Ethereum social consensus layer is not pressured to fork the chain in order to resolve issues with an AVS. Without this, there's a really good chance that too big to fail AVS would eventually get attacked, and Ethereum would face a difficult decision about whether to fork to protect the honest stakers, cope with the incident, possibly bad enough to create Ethereum Classic 2.0. And then there's like some information here about what is EigenLayer actually, and some other thoughts as well. So if you want to read this write-up, people on ETH Finance here were like raving about it and thanking for the write-up. So go and give that a read if you're curious about it. And then talking about the tokens, about how they're going to be airdropped. So Thor here gave an update of how it's going to work. So season 1, which is where we are right now, has 2 phases. In phase 1, this will be people who direct EigenLayer deposits and LRT holders. Snapshot took place on March 15th, and they can check their eligibility now. The claim will start in 11 days, I think on May 10th, but it will not be liquid at that point. And then for phase 2, these are people who went through their Pendle, etc. That snapshot was also on March 15th, but they cannot check their eligibility yet. They're going to get their eligibility checked roughly 1 month after phase 1, as they need time to calculate the holdings properly. And then that's when they'll get the information. But that also will be, the token will be like liquid at the time, and it'll be frozen. So even though the people are going to get their tokens later, it's not going to make a difference to them, in terms of the price changing in the meantime. And then there'll be another season. There'll be a season 2, which will seems like that began from March 15th. So each one of these, like for phase 1, it looks like there'll be 5% of their total tokens will be dropped. Phase 2 will be another 5%, and then for season 2, which I guess is phase 3, maybe as a way of wording it, there'll be another 5% as well, and that's what makes up the 15% of airdrop tokens. And then if we go back to the Rocket Pool Discord here, Jasper shared a tweet from DeFi Moon saying, wow, the EigenLayer community is really not liking the non-transferable Eigen airdrop. 5,000 plus withdrawals have been queued since the official airdrop announcement. How much TVL is EigenLayer going to lose over this fiasco? And Jasper says it begins. And what does he mean by it begins? He's talking about how EigenLayer and LRTs have been kind of like pulling the air out of the staking space, and EigenLayer has amassed $15 billion worth of TVL, if not more than that by now, and basically the vast majority of those people are there for airdrop farming, and they don't care basically about EigenLayer or liquid restaking. And the idea is that some of these people will leave and they might come back to the previous holdings, in LSTs like Rocket Pool, Lido, and others. So it's going to be really interesting to see where these people leaving actually end up and what happens with their ETH, whether they're going to try to go farm something else or whether they are going to go back to their old LSTs and just get that nice and stable reward, or whether they're going to continue to try to farm airdrop season 2 and other LRTs in the meantime. So all of these questions, I think we're going to start getting the answers for them in the next few months. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how all that goes. So now that we've talked about EigenLayer so much, let's have a look at what these are perpetual markets. So these are people trading future EigenLayer tokens, and you can see the price here yesterday started at around $5, and then it went up to around $10 overnight yesterday, and then today, this very early this morning Eastern time, it peaked at around $13. So there was some buying going on there, but now it's gone back to around $10. So that's the point where it's kind of been sticking around. Like, so each point is worth $10. Some people got a few hundred points, so it should end up being quite a nice airdrop. It might be worth like an ETH or two for most people. It might be even worth more than that for others who went in early and with size. But yeah, it looks like $10 is kind of the price on the perpetuals market right now, and that's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out in the next few months until the token actually drops. So earlier we talked about there was like intersubjective and objective faults, and Jasper put this tweet out saying Rocket Pool is the objective fault maxima of Ethereum. So this is about those objective faults, the ones that Ethereum can see on chain. It says there's intersubjectivity on one end and objective faults on the other. Rocket Pool fine-tunes the objective slashing conditions to create the highest possible ETH-based node operator returns. So what Jasper's insinuating here is that under the new Rocket Pool tokenomics, this is going to be tweaked really well. So the faults will be managed in a way that can give node operators, double solo staking rewards, which is really awesome to see. So yeah, that was the big news of the day, the EigenLayer airdrop and the aftermath of it. Let's actually get to some Rocket Pool news now. And here we got news from Joe, and he says, alrighty, version 2 beta 1 is ready. And now what's that? That is the new version of the Smart Node Stack. The Smart Node Stack is the software that Rocket Pool node operators use to manage their staking. And, after more than 2 years of launch now, Rocket Pool is going, well, no, actually, not 2 years of launch. Yeah, 2 years, over 2 years of launch now. Wow, time flies. Rocket Pool is going to have a new version 2 of Smart Node Stack. So Joe says it's too late now to ship it, so I'll do that announcement or whatever tomorrow. That was yesterday. So then today we got this announcement from Joe earlier this morning. He says, hello, node operators. It's been quite a while since I've done one of these. I think the last one was October with version 1.11.0. He says, while Phonax has been doing an amazing job maintaining the current smart node, I've been down the trenches building the next generation. After months of work, I'm finally ready to release Smart Node version 2 beta 1 to the world. It says version 2 is completely redesigned Smart Node from the ground up, taking advantage of years of lessons learned and user feedback. The list of features and changes so far is too long to put here, but here's some highlights. So there's a package manager support. Finally, you can do things like sudo apt install Rocket Pool and sudo apt update to get the latest version. If you're using a Debian based system, we'll have support for other package managers soon. So passwordless mode, you can now run your node without saving your wallet password to disk. It will live in the node service memory until you restart it, at which point you need to enter the password again for automatic transactions to work properly. This is the API, node and Watchtower services have been rolled into a single node service, Rocket Pool node. Furthermore, the node now exclusively uses multi-call to access on-chain data. This makes the command line interface much, much faster, since it doesn't have to recreate its context from scratch with every single call, and can batch many requests together into a single request to the execution client. It says the old API is no more and is being replaced with a shiny new HTTP-based API endpoint. This opens the doors for things like a web user interface for the smart node, so you can have a full HTML-based graphical user interface, which would be really nice. instead of like the command line stuff. So it's going to get even easier to use the smart node in the future once someone builds that on top of the architecture that Joe put in place here. This version 2 doesn't come with one out of the box, but it lays the much needed foundation for them to be built. And then Joe says there's a new transaction system. The command line interface can now print transaction data without signing it and print a signed transaction without sending it to the network. This is helpful for offline wallets or for bundling transactions manually when using a service like Flashbots Protect. Now, if you're doing an operation that involves multiple independent transactions, like distributing rewards from multiple mini pools, you can now sign or send multiple transactions in parallel instead of waiting for each one in sequence. This makes it significantly faster to execute batches of transactions. And there's a new logging system as well for the service. This is especially helpful for our friends in support. The smart node will now log all of its API calls, node task loop, and watchtower task loop to persistent files that remain between updates and reinstallations. Also supports proper log rotation, so when the logs get too big or old, they'll be archived, compressed, and or trimmed accordingly. So there's a whole lot going on over here. And then Joe here says that this should go without saying, but use of this is Leshki testnet only. Do not use this beta version on mainnet. You couldn't even if you wanted to, since it needs Houston to work properly, and mainnet is still on Atlas. So yeah, if you have any issues, you can ask in support or in the beta feedback thread. But this is a huge milestone for Rocket Pool, and Joe's blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this. So a huge congrats goes out to Joe. It looks like Smart Node version 2 will be ready when Houston goes live on mainnet in just over 3 weeks' time. Okay, next we had this from Maverick. There was a new protocol update. He's just giving a couple of updates to the community. The first one is of a vote that's taking place that I talked about in yesterday's episode. The second thing he talks about is a new community call that is coming up on Wednesday evening Eastern time, and Jasper will be hosting this, and they will include special guests from DeFi protocol that will be announced shortly. So they're definitely keeping kind of hush-hush about that. Let's have a look at the vote and where it stands compared to yesterday. So this is the community stipends vote, which is RPIP 41, and it looks like this vote is very close to passing. Let's see if I refresh it, it might have passed already. Not quite, but very close. So we have 5,800 votes in favor of this, which is 83%. We have 1.1 thousand votes abstaining from this, which is 16%. We have 1% of votes against this, and the total quorum reached so far is 7,000 out of 7,200. So we are very close now to this reaching quorum, and it being the case that the management committees of the Rocket Pool DAO will start getting stipends, which I'm excited about because I will be getting one of those stipends. Okay, let's go on to some staking news now. So the first one was Nixo sharing this tweet from MEV Boost Bot, and this was a lottery block that was shown, and this lottery block was for 188 ETH, which was $500,000. And Nixo says this went to a solo staker, a full $500,000 proposal, which is actually really amazing. Of course, the chances of a single person getting one of these blocks is extremely, extremely rare. But it's still much more likely than winning the lottery. I think it's like 7,000 or like 10,000 to 1 or something along those kind of lines, which is way better than millions to 1, right? So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is that with Rocket Pool, you have the option of being in a smoothing pool where this reward would have gone into the smoothing pool had this person been a member of that. But regardless of that, I think it's really great that this person won the lottery. So congratulations to them. Here, JC says, my first thought would be of some kind of bug before celebrating it. Nixo says that I would be absolutely checking all sources before allowing my blood pressure beats per minute to rise. It looks like the operator is a Genesis staker, which is really cool to see as well. So congratulations to that person. Okay, next we got news of Titan Relay. So it says, really excited to have launched Titan Relay after months of hard work. The relay is finally open source and available to the general public at titanrelay.xyz. So this, of course, is a new relay that is being used by stakers. It says that we are thrilled to announce the Ethereum mainnet launch of Titan Relay, a Rust-based MEV boost relay designed for high performance, global distribution, and robustness. And then they've got a full thread that you can check out. But this is great that we're getting more relays. We need more builders. All of these add to decentralization of the different stacks of Ethereum, and we definitely need more decentralization in the MEV boost stack. So thanks for coming online, Titan. That's cool. Let's go back to the Rocket Pool Discord here, and next we've got some more Diva drama. So for those of you who've been following along, it seems like people from the Diva team and former members of the Diva team like to come into the Rocket Pool Discord and kind of dramify it all. Well, today this happened again, where some members of the Rocket Pool community who had received the Diva airdrop were talking about how the Diva, the protocol, was pivoting away from Diva and towards Nektar, which was their native restaking platform that they want to create. And the idea was that the Diva token that we were airdropped would be valueless or potentially not worth much because of that. Miko here was one of the former team members who was removed from the team, and he shared this post of his where he was talking about 3 different paths to the transfer for what the value of the Diva token will be, and whether it's going to be transferable. Here, one of the responses was that the Diva token is likely to be abandoned and not really emphasized much with Nektar. Well, that kind of started a whole discussion and some drama where Kotler, another member of the current Diva team or Nektar team now, came into the Discord and kind of was talking about how Diva is still a fundamental part of Nektar, not realizing that we were actually talking about the token and not the protocol itself. Well, let me see if I can find some messages here from Kotler. Yeah, so here Ramana says that Diva abandoned most likely. Kotler says why, and then I said people here are just so fatigued with the Diva Nektar. In all honesty, and then he said, what does Nektar have to do with abandoning the Diva? I said, and then Ramana replied, Noshua replied by saying, this conversation is about Diva the token, not Diva the protocol. Yeah, like then there was a whole bunch of drama that basically kind of started up from that. So I'm not going to go into all of it. You can go and have a look at that discussion if you are interested in it. But I feel like every few days or every couple of weeks, there's some new Diva or Nektar drama that's taking place. And it always seems to be that it's taking place in the Rocket Pool Discord. So, yay! Anyway, yeah. So there's some of the drama going back and forth about who's to blame and what's going on with it and all that kind of stuff. So you can go ahead and read that. I'm not going to rehash it here. Okay, let's talk about some Ethereum stuff now. So here we have Patrick McHenry, who is a member of Congress. He's a Republican politician, and he basically put out this statement about the SEC. And he says, in case you missed it, new court filings indicate that SEC Chair Gary Gensler knowingly misled Congress when presented on the classification of ETH at financial committee hearing, to conduct oversight of his agency. So he says, just months after a federal judge sanctioned the SEC enforcement lawyers for lying to the court, new evidence shows that Chair Gary Gensler himself misled Congress. In testimony to the Financial Service Committee last April, Chair Gensler refused to answer questions regarding SEC's classification of Ether. New court filings showed this was an intentional attempt to misrepresent the Commission's position. Classifying Ether as security contradicts previous statements of the SEC and Chair Gensler. Yet another example of the arbitrary and capricious nature this was language used against the SEC in court. In the Grayscale case, I think, or the Coinbase case, one of the cases, so many cases, capricious nature of the agency's regulation by enforcement approach to digital assets. This episode underscores the urgency of Congress passing the bipartisan FIT Fit for the 21st Century Act to provide a clear regulatory framework and robust consumer protections for digital asset markets. Committee Republicans will continue to hold Gary Gensler's SEC accountable for its regulatory overreach by stifling innovation, leaving American consumers unprotected, and risking our national security. So it looks like the House Republicans are going to potentially call Gary Gensler to Congress again and give him a good grilling, which is going to be really interesting to see how that's going to work out. And of course, as always, I will let you know how that goes on the show. Okay, Mario here had an update of the EPF study group, and it concluding. This is 10 weeks of sessions covering every major part of Ethereum R&D, helping dozens of people learn about the core protocol. As an outcome, we have a knowledge base built by tens of volunteers and maintained by the community. And the link here is epf.wiki. So if you have a look at the page, this is the Ethereum protocol, the fellowship study group. And you've got like a really nice wiki here now that tells you all about Ethereum, the different parts of it. Like you can read about the architecture, you can read about how it's changed, you can read about the different parts of the consensus layer, the execution layers, and a whole lot of information. So if you are interested in learning about any of this stuff, definitely check out the EPF wiki, and you'll get some really good information there. Okay, next we got this really cool tool from 0x Not Gonna Make It, and this person I think works for, is working with DeFi Llama, and it says we just launched a new way to check your address for airdrop allocations. Go to defilama.com/airdrops, click check airdrops for address, input any address, we'll display airdrops that have come to this address. So let's go to the website and have a look to see what's there. So as you know, it's the DeFi Llama page. On the left side, you've got the menu for airdrops, and at the top, you've got all these different airdrops that have taken place recently, like Omni, Mode, Jupiter, AltLayer, Starknet, etc. And then you have this blue tab saying check airdrops for address. When you click on that, it tells you to provide an EVM address. So just for jokes, I'm going to use Anthony Sassano's address here, sassel.eth. And you just paste it into there. There's no need for any kind of VPN or anything like that. It will tell you what airdrops you've gotten. So here we see that he got 1inch, Degen, Diva, ENS, DYDX, and Uniswap. So there's no EigenLayer airdrop on this. But he of course wasn't. Anthony Sassano was of course an angel investor in there. But this is a really nice thing. Sorry, I'm not meaning to pick on Anthony for this. I was just using his wallet as an example. It's a public wallet, but what I'm trying to say is that this is a really nice tool for people who might want to check their eligibility of different airdrops, because the front ends are getting more and more restricted depending on what country you're in. So the fact that you can just go here and check whether you're eligible for an airdrop or not means that then you can make more or less of an effort to try to make the effort to claim the token when the time comes. So that's really cool. Great job, DeFi Llama team. Okay, next we had some big news coming out of the Binance case that is happening in Washington State. And today's news was that Binance founder CZ was sentenced to 4 months in prison. Now, this actually came as a huge surprise because people thought he was going to be getting more time in prison than this. But there's a mixture of prison and some time of probation that comes after that. What's really funny is CZ was famous for tweeting number 4, and that was in reference to people voting Binance. Well, now this has become a huge meme of just CZ holding 4 fingers up. How many months do you have to go to prison for? He's holding up 4 fingers, and lots and lots of people joking about it. So that was definitely interesting news from today. And we are actually going to finish today's episode with news of McLovin returning to the Rocket Pool community after a 2-year hiatus. So welcome back, McLovin. I hope you hang around. Because I didn't really get to know you all that well the last time you were here. I wasn't as involved in the community as I became over the last couple of years, but your reputation definitely precedes. So welcome, McLovin. And on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have lovely days ahead, and I will see you all tomorrow.